not to castigate, but this is how it works. This is the truth. Because when we have high standards, it makes us used to those behaviors. But when we are lax, it makes us used to those behaviors. And what you're used to, you're not going to be able to notice that it's off. So if you're used to being lax, then if that's the way that you behave with other people, then you become so used to it so that you don't easily see that thing as an issue when someone begins to display it with you. Until you suddenly realize one day, hey, this person is disrespecting me. Hey, this person is disrespecting me. But that's because we're so used to behaving in a way that is so lax, that our standards aren't high. So those things aren't alien, that they aren't foreign to us. So it's not easy for us to decipher when someone begins to misbehave in the beginning, because we're not used to better, more decent, more refined behavior. But if we were, we'll be able to easily see these things when they begin to rear their heads in little ways in relationships. And that's why, simple, you need someone who has high standards to be in a relationship with. It has to be someone who has high standards. But that means that you also have to be of high standards, because if you're not of high standards, you cannot notice, you cannot tell, you cannot read the person before you. If you're of high standards, when someone who is of lower standards is before you, you're going to be able to tell immediately by the things that they're doing, no, this person just doesn't get it. We're not going to be able to be a match. So many times, I have to come again, many times, and I'm whooping you on the last day of the year. I am sorry, but this is what it is. I am not here to pander to you or to tell you lies, because that's why you've been spinning in this wheel, having the results that you've been having over the years. Somebody needs to get the truth in, and this is what it is. It comes down to us and our standards. Because the higher that our standards are, the more that we can recognize it when we see it. We can recognize the opposite when it comes into our vicinity. So this is what we need to be able to filter our companions. And once a person is not of high standards, no matter what we're saying, they can't see your point, because that's just not the way that they see things. And this is the big reason why you're struggling and spinning your wheels, because you're in the wrong place with the wrong person. And all your patience and kindness and understanding will not change things, because they have a mindset shift to make. And until they make that mindset shift, you're going to remain in that thing. And no matter how many counseling sessions you go to, so that is why you need to understand psychology. We need to understand psychology, the psychology of a person that we're dealing with, because that is where everything comes from. Everything comes from mindset. Everything that manifests in the physical comes from a person's mindset. So that's why I say this thing is hard work. It's hard work. But not in the way that people say that dealing with people is hard work. Because actually we have to work on ourselves. We spend so much energy and time wanting people to do the right thing, pointing fingers at people when they're not doing the right thing. When in the first place, we didn't even polish up ourselves. We didn't raise our own standards for ourselves. Most of us are so lax and we don't even know it. So it's a bunch of lax people mingling with each other, pointing fingers at other lax people. So we're not to be pointing big fingers at other people. Let's take the time to examine ourselves. We're all really naughty children here. So in the lax way that we're dealing with people is what we're getting. And so everybody just wants to be lax. Everybody just wants to be free. And once we're embracing that lifestyle, that's why we're getting what we're getting. It takes discipline. And I am not telling you that I am so damn disciplined, but I am telling you now that we need to recognize that we have a big role to play. We have a big role to play on our own parts, right? Because they're watching us as well. They're watching us and they reflect what we display. Damn, that's it. That's that thing they say, that your relationship is a reflection of who you are. So I'm not trying to victim blame. I'm only trying to tell us how to do our own due diligence so that we can take better care of ourselves. So that we can quit crying and grow up and put on our big boy pants and big girl pants, because no one is coming to save us. And we can point fingers all we want, but no one is coming to save us. So you can see that sometimes maybe we've actually been those mindless people that we've been talking about. Maybe we've been the villain, and yet we're pointing fingers, not knowing that we also have a big role to play in this thing. So let's brush up ourselves so that we can be truly deserving of a high value person. And as I say these things, I know that somebody watching this is going to be saying to themselves, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. What does she mean? I need to go to a place where they will tell me things that I would like to hear. But you know what that does? That's what keeps you spinning in this wheel. Because you haven't quite seen things from this angle. You always thought that you were perfect. I always thought that I was perfect. I thought I was perfect until I sat down to start examining. Because, because normally I am decent, and I don't take people for granted. I behave myself. But what about the way that I present myself? So it's not just doing right by the other person. How am I presenting myself? Have I polished myself in a way that they look at me and they know that this person is someone of value? How do they interpret the person that I'm presenting? Because a lot of us give people what we know that people should get because we're a decent person. But what about presenting ourselves? We think it's just enough to be a good person, generally, to be a decent person, but there is more to it. There is some wisdom and some insight to it. We need to also take into cognizance the person that they're seeing before them, what this person is displaying as who they are. Because it's not just the way that I'm treating them, it's the way that I have presented myself. Who am I to this person? Is this someone that they know that they have to respect? So that's where the onus is on us. So if you're listening to this and you feel like, I don't like this, I need to go somewhere where they can say nice things to me so that it can make it easy on me, then this is what you need to ask yourself. So if you're not going to change, if you're not even able or willing to change, to brush up yourself for yourself, how dare you ask someone else to brush up for you? How do you, if you cannot raise your standards for yourself, how do you then feel that you're at liberty to ask someone else to raise their standards for you, for your own enjoyment? They can't change for you if you can't change for yourself. So you see what you're expecting from other people, you can't do for yourself. That means you're screwed. On this journey, I am not making you captain to sentence people to jail for misbehavior. I want you to examine yourself, be your own prison warden. So you cannot raise standards for others while we stay doing nonsense. We don't want to hear about your abandonment issues. Let's face it. You need to heal before, if you have issues, you need to heal before you get into a relationship. They're not your therapist. They're not your parents. They didn't come into a relationship to be your therapist. So we need to heal before we get into a relationship. Everybody needs to heal first. And then we enter with good standards and let others rise to it. And as you hear this, you'll be thinking, oh, she's talking because she didn't go through what I went through. But if you hear my story, and I went through so much trauma, if I told you my story, and I felt this same way. Okay, here is a video where I talked about it briefly. I felt this way. I felt powerless because of what I went through. And it wasn't until I realized that no one is coming to save me. In fact, that's how I realized that I had to draw power from my creator. I cannot leave the power in other people's hands. It has to be between me and my creator. And that is why I'm making this video, so that people can understand. You cannot get validation from other people. You need to first have validation for yourself. And once you have it for yourself, people are going to feel it. Because it's going to come across in the way that you relate to them. And because they know that you have that validation for yourself, they cannot treat you carelessly. And you yourself cannot take. You will not be able to stand for being treated carelessly. Because you have so much self-worth, so much validation for yourself, you are not looking to the outside. You almost get to a point where it's like you don't even care what the next person is thinking. Seriously. Because you feel so powerful within yourself. You feel so self-assured. And because you're feeling it, it's going to reflect in everything that you're doing and in the way that you carry yourself and in the way that you speak about things. People cannot help noticing it. And now you're not even doing it because you want people to notice it. It just comes because it becomes a part of who you are. When you're being treated carelessly, it's because you've transmitted that information that you don't have validation for yourself, and that's why you even stick around for mistreatment in the first place. So when you're sticking around and wanting someone to treat you better, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because the message that you're sending is very different from what you think you're sending. Your brain is deceiving you. And this is what people mean when they talk about manifestation, that you manifest what is in you. And this is what people mean when you hear that your relationship is a reflection of who you are. And this is what people mean when they say that you attract who you are. You attract what you are. This is it. The bottom line is that the way that you think of yourself is the way that you're going to show up. So if you're thinking of yourself as someone who's waiting for them to change and to treat you right, you're going to present yourself as they are here and you are here, waiting for them to come down to your level. But if you're thinking of yourself this way, then it means that they really need to rise to your level. It means that they need to stop doing lower things so that they're able to come up to meet you where you're up. That is the meaning of your mind controlling your reality. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. It's not magic and it's not mysterious. That's exactly what it means. That's exactly what it means. It couldn't be any clearer. So everybody needs to heal before getting into relationships. Heal first and then enter with standards and let them rise to it. So you raise the bar and not fall to meet them below at their low standards. So you're going to raise your confidence. You're going to start your confidence journey. Say yes and it shall be so. Fill the form that I leave below this video and answer the questions, and if you qualify, then you'll be joining us. And it's free for now. It's not going to be free for much longer because I want us to level up going into 2025. And do not be afraid, because raising your values isn't about being perfect. None of us is going to be perfect, but we're going to increase our value step by step because it's little drops that make an ocean. We're not going to find a perfect person. We're not trying to be perfect. In fact, the very idea of perfection stems from a lack of confidence. And that's the story that we tell ourselves in our minds to prevent us from reaching the heights that we really want. Because of our self-doubt, we hold ourselves back, when all that we should be concerned about is the next step and the next step and the next step. So the earlier you step into accepting that, then the earlier you begin to have the best life and the best relationships. Our insecurities are all rooted in associating with our past experiences, and they don't have to define us. We have to let those things out of our lives. We have to let them go. Now, if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel. So what we want is to step into the most flourishing version of ourselves so that we can begin to get the results that we want in our lives. And this is going to be not just about relationships. We'll see how these things affect all other areas of our lives. So one thing that you have to do now is decide fully. Don't say, okay, maybe I can try. Don't use try. You have to make up your mind. I told you in one other video, I'll put it right here, that the people who struggle in love have only one thing differentiating them from the people who don't. The people who don't struggle are the people who have made a declaration. Like me. You simply make a declaration and you stick to it. You don't give it a wishy-washy, I'll try, I'll do it, I won't. You simply say something like this to yourself. The only people that I'm going to be in a relationship with are people who are going to show me love and respect for my dignity. And I will do the same for them. And anything besides that, I'm not having it. You only need to say that to yourself. So that when anybody shows up and they begin to move funny, you know, this is not happening with me. This is not for me. It only just requires that you yourself are also there to love a person, to give them respect for their dignity. And once you've done that, and you're requiring it of them, if they cannot do it, you don't begin to think about anything that makes you begin to give them the benefit of the doubt. Because you didn't need the benefit of the doubt to show them the goodness that you were showing them. You didn't. And I know that your fear is that you're going to lose that person. And that's why I gave you that other option. You don't need to abandon them and drop them like a hot potato. What you do, actually, yeah, drop them like a hot potato, but you don't need to exit completely. You just now relate with them from behind the wall as a friend. So they don't have that exclusivity with you. So I say, I for one will never experience struggle love. You know why? It's not because when people see me, I know how to check people out and just know that one. Or because I know how to make people bow. No, it's simply because I make a declaration. And I will stick to that declaration no matter what. If you don't meet that, it's like I say, we're having a party and the dress code is white. And if you're coming in and you're dressed in blue, or I don't need to think about anything. You are not part of this party because you're not dressed for the party. So that's it. So my declaration is, you're going to love me and you're going to treat me with respect. So once you're not doing those, you are disqualified. I'm not even going to think about it. So you cannot show up and making me question my reality, question my self-worth, question my values. Once a person shows up with that kind of energy, they're bounced. Or I bounce. I bounce. I would rather cry from the pain of not having you, from the pain of losing you. I would rather cry from the pain of missing you. I would rather cry every day for 30 days of the month than to have that, because I know that once I allow that to be in my life, then I'll be in misery. And I will not have that. You've got to choose. That's why it's not easy. I will not have that. Because what is the point of having a relationship? A lot of people are just patching the relationships. Now, if you want to patch it, then go be like the rest of the world. Go be like the rest of the people who are patching, who are going to take just what is available. I can't wait to start reading those emails. I can't wait to start reading those letters. I can't wait to start reading those stories to you of people's experiences. Every time that you do that settling, it's just spinning the block. It's just waiting for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then you're still going to have to give it up and then still begin all over to search for your person. I should start this in the beginning of January. So it's all these things about. Remember that you're made in the image of God. Those are all the things that I gave you in the fundamentals in the beginning, in the first videos on this, in the first videos on this channel. I gave you all those things for you to think about. If you're something that was made in the image of God, okay, if so I told you to remove yourself. So if you were given an item or a human being that you were told was made in the image of God, would you allow this thing or this person to be mistreated? And I told you that people move through life like that. Take the people who just do what they want. You can talk about Hitler or all the other people who just decide that they're going to do this. It's about making a decision and standing by it. Who are you? Who do you see yourself as? Do you know who Hitler was? Hitler was a little man with a small background. But because he said to himself, I'm going to get this. And in fact, that's what happens a lot of the time. A person who comes from very humble backgrounds makes up their mind that I don't want this in my life. How do you think people change their circumstances? Because people declare that I don't want this. This is what I want and this is what I'm going for. And the only thing that stops us from getting it is that we decide, maybe I am asking for too much. So I will just settle. And as soon as you settle, you settle. You're going to stay with what you settled for. There's no escape. Think about all the dictators in different countries. That's how they do it. They decide, look, one person is controlling a whole country, a population of how many people? So many people. But they decide, I am going to rule these people and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. One person against the rest of the country. It's all about deciding. So everything comes from the mind. Is it physical strength? Do they have to? They don't have. They just decide. It's a decision that we make. We make a decision to control our reality. And we know that we can do all things because we were made in the image of God. Yeah, I know that sometimes people have had experiences that make you feel like you're so little, make you doubt your self-worth and your self-esteem. But I'm telling you how the power is in your hands. Yeah, sometimes we have experiences and we have one thing or the other. So I can understand that sometimes these things are valid. But I'm saying this because there are many people who don't even have a single thing that they can point at to say that, because you know that you've seen very beautiful women, very handsome, well-to-do guys, very people who are in a position where you would think that whoever had the chance to be with them would worship them. And yet you come to see that those people are being abused by someone else because the other person has a mindset of being who they are being in that relationship. That's all that it is. That's what it is. So I'm speaking to people who don't even have anything obvious that's keeping them down. People who don't realize that you can just make a declaration and stand on it. So I tell you that before you get into relationships, it's best that you know yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, then you don't know what you're not going to accept. And anything will start to happen in the relationship and you'll be there trying to figure it out. I'm not figuring out, because remember, what you tolerate is what you accept. Like people who say that they communicate their boundaries. You communicate your boundaries, but they're not being taken seriously, and yet you still remain there. That's what it is. Communicating boundaries is not about making noise or about shouting them every day. It's about you taking action. You said this thing before, you've explained before that you don't like it, and now to communicate that you really mean it is, okay, I'm just going to quietly withdraw myself from this. I'm going to remove myself so that they understand that I cannot live with this. I can't live like that. But because you're maybe holding on to outcomes, you want the outcome that you want. You want an outcome from something that isn't willing to give the outcome. So you need to learn to detach. Remove yourself from the outcome that you're looking for, because you're looking for it in the wrong place. Remember that sometimes a lot of times rejection is redirection. You're looking for it in the wrong place when you should be looking for it here. You're staying stuck here, looking for it in this place when you're not supposed to be in this place. So don't forget that you cannot control other people. Don't stay there and keep trying to twist other people and now performing witchcraft on them, trying to cast a spell on them to make them be under your control to do what you want. Instead, control what is within your control. You have so much more control that you're not even paying attention to. But you can't do these things if you will not hold yourself to high standards. So it's going to be a new year. So you need to be a completely new person. So you do this for yourself and give yourself this gift as a new person. Change your entire life. You don't need to wait. You don't need to wait another month, another week, another year. You don't need to wait. Don't keep yourself in your comfort zone. Step out of it so that you can begin to have what you want. It's all about mindset. So your validation is going to not come from the things that you're doing from the outside, because that's what a lot of us do. Because we're running away from ourselves, we're looking for validation on the outside. We think that we can make ourselves look beautiful on the outside, go shopping, buy all the latest and trendiest things, be admired by other people, and then we go home and then we crawl into bed and cry. We're unhappy while we're driving our beautiful car. We buy the flashiest car, we get all the admiration from outside, but inside we are still not happy because we have run away from that person on the inside that we're supposed to help, to heal up, and to raise up. But no matter how much we run and no matter how much we get validation from the outside, we will not be happy because we haven't validated ourselves. And that's what you hear when people talk about self-love. That's what you hear when they say love yourself first, because if you don't love yourself, others aren't going to love you, because the way that we feel about ourselves is what reflects in everything else. So we're busy talking a lot, talking about our achievements, talking about our possessions, talking about the things that we think will make us attractive. It doesn't matter how much validation people give us at the end of the day, because when we let them know all those things that we've achieved and all those things that we've acquired, they see us. They see us in our flashy cars. They see us and they will give us that validation. They will give it to us. You know, seeing us as, hey, we've arrived. But the truth is that the way that we interact with the way that are closest to us or the people that matter the most, we're going to be busy thinking, do they like me? Or do they appreciate me? Do they validate me? Do they confirm me? We're going to be so busy in that energy that they can't help noticing it. They can't help it, because we're always talking in a way where we say things that sound like we want to impress them. We're not coming natural. And some of us do this by even people pleasing. And people notice. And when people notice that you're a people pleaser, they'll notice and they cannot trust you. And then they will lose respect for you. And then when we keep on talking about our achievements and our acquisitions, they will know that we're trying to get them to respect us and to value us. And the moment that you're in a position of seeking their confirmation, all that they saw before us initially, all that they saw about us initially when they were valuing us, everything begins to go down in their minds. And they're like, oh, so this is not the person that I had placed on a pedestal. This person doesn't earn that pedestal. And so you then starts your slow fall, or maybe a quick fall sometimes from the pedestal. And that's why you're being disrespected, because the opinion that they had from all those external things that they validated you for, they begin to see through all the cracks and they can see the real you now. The real you doesn't even have self-esteem and self-respect. And that's why they cannot respect you. So do you see that everything comes from the mind? Everything comes from doing inner work. Everything comes from doing inner work. And I must reiterate again that I haven't forgotten that people have trauma. People have things that they've been through. Maybe upbringing. And I want to remind us that all of us think that our stories are special. And I thought I was special. I thought I was so special because of my experiences. And I thought that if people knew the negative things that I'd been through, they would marvel that I am the way that I am because they don't know what I've been through. And I used to say, I can't remember that saying, oh, thank God I don't look like what I've been through. Until I started doing this work and I started running into people who were still crying about their backgrounds and the things that they've been through. And seeing how those things are still holding them back because they feel specially traumatized. They feel particularly singled out for punishment in life. And they're still living in that mindset and wondering why life chose to do this to them. And I can tell you because I once said that of myself. It was once my mindset where I felt, okay, so this is my destiny. This is what life has chosen. I am that person who life has chosen to place in this position. Until I realized that the difference really is that what they don't realize is that they're not really that special. We're not really that special. Many of us are not really that special. I'm not minimizing your struggles. I'm sorry if you're listening to this, because at the time I also felt some point that people minimize my trouble. But the truth is, people who even look like they have everything under control have their own struggles. So we all have our own strengths and our own weaknesses. But the thing is that if your mind is focused on that weakness, then you're going to lack in that area because you're focused on it. So you see where it says, the thing which I fear the most has come upon me. It also says that, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Those things are real. Those things are real. These things are not just for people who believe in the Creator or the Almighty Father. These things are spiritual laws. It's like wisdom of the world. It's like nature's words. So even if you're not Christian, these things apply to everyone. I encourage you to read all those portions of the Bible that talk about mindset, that tell you how there is power in words. So that even the words that you speak, even the ones that you say in your mind, all those things have an influence on the things that come out, that manifest in your life. You know? Because the times when I used to say to myself, okay, so this is my life, this is my destiny, this is my burden, this is my cross, I was living accordingly. And there's a way that that works. There's a way that it translates itself and makes it so that that's the energy that you're giving out to nature. The unfortunate thing is that in the first place, what happened to you, you didn't call it yourself. You were just sitting there living in this life on this earth, minding your business, and this thing came and happened to you to start with. Starting off a spiral of events and things in your life just by coming in the first place. Now it's the way that we handle that thing that came into our life that now determines other things coming in or staying out. Because look at me right now. Nobody is going to subject me to questioning my integrity or self-esteem. Today, I'm living the exact opposite of that thing that I was thinking of myself. I've come to realize that I am not special in it. So other people have it. So I kind of suspect that almost everybody has a story where they feel that they were particularly disfavored in one aspect or the other. So the question really now is, do we stay in that feeling of being disfavored, or do we carry it and wear it like a cloak? So in this video, I decided that I was going to take off that cloak and see myself as when I was created. I was born from my mother's womb without any special input on my part. I didn't even know that I was coming into this world. I came in without clothes. I came in and I was probably pinched or slapped to make me cry, to clear my airways, to make me breathe. And so all those things are not in my control. A lot of things are not in my control, and yet I survived. So there is so much that is given to us. There's so much that's given to you. So it's a question of you taking what is available to you and using it. So I want you to know that no matter how disfavored you feel, you can equalize with other people, so to say. Because I know people who came in, I live in Canada, I know people who came in as refugees. I know a lady who came in, she actually just came for, she ran away from what she came for and got herself in Canada and decided that she was going to make a life for herself in Canada. And today, she lives in her own house, drives her own car, which she bought with her own money. I know this person personally. I worked with her. So there are people like this. She was even orphaned early. And she went to live with her sister for a while. And then at a point, she went to live with her brother before she eventually came here to Canada. And now she's made a life for herself. So she does everything for herself. So if someone can come from that, and then they can become someone, and they become self-sufficient, it tells us that we can have a negative background, but we can also decide that we can find a way through that thing, that weakness that came into our life, over which we had no control. And we're going to learn from these things. We're going to learn from all these people's stories. So when you come inside our container, you can know that you can empower yourself. Power actually comes from us being aware and grateful for the things that we have at our fingertips that we can use. Those are our strengths. So we don't give attention and weight to our weaknesses instead. So what we do with the weaknesses instead is that we recognize them and climb on them, use them as stepping stones to make ourselves what we are supposed to be in this world. Make ourselves a shining light and a beacon. And that's what we do. So we even appreciate those weaknesses. People close to me were thinking that I must really, really be bitter towards the person who mistreated me. And I laugh in my mind because they cannot understand it. They cannot believe when I say to them that I am not. And I struggled and struggled. I kept trying to tell them, look, it's not what you're thinking. I'm not bitter. But I finally came to realize that probably because maybe they would feel that way if it happened to them, or maybe because that's what people generally just feel when they watch people who have been hurt by someone. But I know what that did for me. So instead of feeling bitter, I feel so empowered because of that experience, because I have drawn strength from it. I have drawn strength from analyzing the situation and knowing how to use that in relating with everybody now. That is the one thing that actually shaped my life. It is the one thing that showed me how to be confident. And what can you do without confidence? What can you do without confidence? This is one of the strongest things that a human being can possess. One of the best things that a human being can possess. And how did I get it? I got it because I had to wade through that experience. So how can I look upon a gift with bitterness? Anybody who's experienced this will know what I'm talking about. If you've experienced seeing the bitterness yield fruit for you, you will understand. But if you haven't, then to you it sounds like a fairy tale or a made-up story. It sounds like fiction, like the person is just making it up. They're pretending that they're okay, but they're not okay. But I don't give a I'm not someone who is going to be worrying about presenting that I am okay if I am not. Really, if I'm not okay, I say to you directly, because I'm a very direct person. I say, I'm not okay. I'm not having that shit, right? So when I say that I am okay, it's okay if nobody else wants to believe it, because I don't need external validation, because I've overcome that. And that is actually what helped me to overcome it. So I'm working on air. So that taught me that I have to validate myself. That really taught me the lesson of validating myself. And without validating myself, I wouldn't be able to walk through this world without needing validation from other people. So that's a big gift. So our weaknesses that we're looking at, we have to use them as a tool to be positive in our lives as far and as much as we can, so that they don't weigh us down and send us in the opposite direction. And yeah, it's not every experience that can be turned that way. I know, I admit that. But there are other things in our lives that we can use, and we only need to be conscious. We need someone to remind us to be conscious of these things. So let's walk into 2025 as a stronger, higher version of ourselves. So you need to accept yourself. Stop rejecting yourself, because if you cannot accept yourself, why will someone else? And if you don't do that, you will never achieve the life of your dreams. You will have lost and become a complete victim to that weakness. So you must step out of it. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. Cheers. Oh, I should have brought a wine glass. I should have brought champagne. Well, cheers.